Fannie Mae's Christmas by Katherine Davis Tillman. This was written in 1921 and published in the Christian Recorder. Fannie Mae's Christmas. It was a long time ago, for it was in 1877 that Fannie Mae, a dear little girl with brown face and long, silky braids of hair, of which she was very proud when it was properly beribboned, lived on York Street in the city of Louisville, Kentucky. In addition to her beautiful hair, Fannie Mae had other attractions. She had bright black eyes that seemed ever to hold a smile lurking in their depths, and a disposition that made her loved from one end of the street to which she lived to the other. Fannie Mae's father worked across the street in the big tobacco factory on the corner where he and hundreds of others, Negro American ancestry, stemmed and packed tobacco for shipping. Fannie Mae's mother, a fair little woman of frail physique, worked for a kind white family when she was able. Living was very high in this beautiful southern city, and when Fannie Mae's father had paid the exorbitant rent demanded by his white landlord for their two-room home, kept fire in the kitchen stove and in the great fireplace in the living room, bought wood and the cheapest kind of clothing, there was very little left of the $7.50 pay that he received each week. Then, too, as her father would have told you himself, he was a typical Kentuckian of that day, and a laboring man must have his morning toddy, and the little store on the corner with its bar in the rear sometimes got a third of his week's pay. So you see, when Fannie Mae's mother was ailing, as she had been now for several weeks, and could not go to work for white folks, it looked mighty slim for Christmas doings at Fannie Mae's little humble home. And since there were just two things out of all the things in the whole world that Fannie Mae had set her heart on, it did seem as if a little girl who didn't act greedy and ask for lots and lots of things like Maybelle and Prudy Ann, two of her little friends, might have those two things. But while Fannie Mae was only 8, she had lots of sense, and Granny Hope, who lived next door, always declared she was old in the head because she was so thoughtful. She spoke of these two things as she ate her share of corn cake and sorghum at supper. "I just wish Santa Claus would bring me just two things out of all the million things he's got in his sleigh," she sighed. "What's that, Fannie Mae?" said her father, who was very fond of his little daughter. "I want a great big doll that can shut its eyes and go to sleep when I rock it and say, 'Mama,' when you squeeze it. And then I want a great big cradle bed to put it to sleep in. Me and Prudy Ann and Maybelle, we saw one in the store when we took the white folks' clothes home. Oh, Pappy, it was just beautiful. If I had a big doll and a bed, I wouldn't want another thing. All the other children get something to play with but me. I ain't got no little brother and sister, nor nothing tall." Fannie Mae's father's face grew long. "Don't look for nothing this Christmas, 'cause I done heard Santa Claus wouldn't be able to get around to our place at all, 'cause hard times is so hard." Fannie Mae's bright eyes filled with tears. "And I ain't gonna get nothing at all?" she said. "How come he ain't coming here this Christmas? He never missed before." "Time's too hard and Mama sick." "I would got something off the Sunday school Christmas tree, but I done missed 4 Sundays staying with Mama. And when you done missed 4 Sundays, Prudy Ann and Maybelle both say you don't get nothing off the Christmas tree." And overwhelmed by the tragic turn of affairs, Fannie Mae wept aloud. Fannie Mae's mother, who was in bed, roused right up. She always did if there was something the matter with Fannie Mae. Mothers are like that, you know. "Stop crying, mother's child," she said. "Indeed, you will have something for Christmas. Soon as I feel at least a bit better, I'll begin right away making some new Christmas clothes for Ella, Virginia." Fannie Mae's most cherished possession was a big rag doll made by her mother out of flour sacking and stuffed with bran from a neighboring lumber yard. Her face was outlined with bluing, and on her head was real hair, cut from Fannie Mae's mother's head. Ella, Virginia had been Fannie Mae's pride since she was 5. She shared all of her games and playhouse and was hugged close to her bosom when Fannie Mae went to sleep. But constant wear with an active little mistress like Fannie Mae had reduced Ella, Virginia to a mere wreck of her former self. She had leaky arms and legs. Her face was so soiled it was hard to discover where her eyes had been. And even Fannie Mae's loving heart ached at the appearance of Ella, Virginia, beside the china dolls owned by Prudy Ann and Maybelle. The last time the trio had a sewing bee for the doll children over at Prudy Ann's backyard, Fannie Mae's friends had so openly poked fun at Ella, Virginia, that the little mother had arisen in righteous wrath and hied herself homeward. Her eyes filled with angry tears, but the sad fact remained unchanged. Ella, Virginia's best days were past. She could still be loved and played with alone, at home, but out? Never. Still, it would not be fair to Ella, Virginia to refuse new clothes for her. Her mother could make such a cunning little jacket and such pretty dresses for Ella, Virginia, and she worked real buttonholes in her clothes, and Fannie Mae could button them just as she did her own clothing. She assented tearfully and went about her dishes as cheerfully as she could, but her little heart was sad, oh so sad, because she, of all the little girls in her street, would have no visit from Santa Claus at Sunday school or at home. When Fannie Mae's last dish was washed and placed upon the cupboard shelves, and she had read a chapter in the New Testament with her father, she sat in her own little red rocker that her father's kind dark hands had made for her on her last birthday, and looked in a big fireplace and imagined how wonderful it would be if on Christmas Eve she could hang up her stocking up just as she did last Christmas and wake up and find all crammed to the toe with good things, candy and nuts and big yellow orange from far away Florida or California, and a big doll, and sure enough, cradle bed, big enough to put her to sleep in. But the little eyes had closed, for the Sandman had managed to throw a good big handful of sand in them, I suppose. And Fannie Mae trembled out of the little red rocker to the floor, and her father picked her up and kissed her and put her to bed. When he was through, Fannie Mae's mother was crying, for she had been watching Fannie Mae, and she knew what she was thinking about, for she knew that she thought about Christmas time when she was like Fannie Mae, and she knew that it breaks a child's heart when she is told to expect nothing for Christmas. "Billy boy, Fannie Mae's so little. She don't know anything about hard times. She must have a Christmas. Oh, and here I am sick and can't get out to work." "Why, look here. It isn't fair for a poor man like me to have 2 babies on his hands at once," said Fannie's father, with an archer pat on his sick wife's head. "But don't worry. She shall have some Christmas. If I have to set up every night for a month, I'm going to make her a doll cradle bed big enough for sure enough baby, just as she's fretting about. I've got some nice pine that will be just the thing, and you can make the mattress between grunts," he added with a mischievous smile. Fannie Mae's mother was young, so she clapped her thin brown hands together almost as Fannie Mae would have done. "And Billy boy, I can make the little sheets and pillowcases and tack for comfort. I'm so glad you thought of such a beautiful thing to do. I know it will be just fine, because you made Fannie Mae's little rockers so nice." Then, too, said Fannie Mae's father, his face all smiles, you know Granny Hope's a wonderful hand for molasses cookies and molasses candy. And we've got plenty of sorghum laid by. And if I can get hold of a few walnuts for the candy, I guess Fannie Mae are pretty good after all, except for the doll. I don't see how we can manage that unless one drops down from the sky somewhere. Like the babe of Bethlehem, sighed the mother. Well, I'll do all I can to make Ella Virginia presentable. Night after night found Fannie Mae's father sitting up after a hard day's work at the factory, working on the cradle bed. Sometimes he would fall asleep at his task, but when he did, he always got up an hour earlier in the morning and made up for it. He had to hide it at Granny Hope's next door to keep Fannie Mae from knowing. At last, it was finished, and when he brought it home after Fannie Mae was asleep, Fannie Mae's mother was too happy for anything. Oh, how could you make such a beautiful, beautiful bed all by yourself, she said. For the cradle bed was wonderfully carved with the figure of an angel at the head, and it has nice even slats and rockers just like a true bed. It was big enough for a real baby, sure enough, said the mother. Then they began to plan again about the cookies and candy. Yes, Granny Hope would make them. Fannie Mae's mother had done her more than one good turn when she was down with her back, and they didn't bother one mite about the walnuts, for she had some nice fresh ones her son had sent in from the country, and she would make fluffy taffy like she used to make at the big houses at Christmas times before the war. Of course, she meant the Civil War that freed the American slaves. Fannie Mae knew nothing of these delightful doings, but she was more cheerful than she had been, for she was busy making presents for others. Out of an old red flannel shirt Granny Hope gave her, she made a needle case for her mother and stitched the edges with coarse black thread and a pen wiper for her father. Then she made 2 iron holders for Granny and covered them with some scraps of ticking for Prudy Ann and Maybelle. She made the dearest little pin cushions. Did you know there was so much Christmas in a discarded red flannel shirt? Of course, there was magic in Fannie Mae's little fingers, the magic of love. And we can all have that if we work hard enough for it. You remember I told you that everybody liked Fannie Mae because of her pleasant disposition? Well, Prudy Ann and Maybelle and the day school teacher and the Sunday school all missed the bright-eyed little one with the sunny smile. And when the children told teachers how Fannie Mae's mother was sick and Santa Claus wouldn't be able to bring Fannie Mae not a speck of Christmas, both of her teachers felt so sorry and said to themselves that something must really be done about it. For it really wasn't right for a little girl who minded her parents and teachers and did work well at home and school and seldom ever pouted should have to go without Christmas. The day teacher, a young woman who had struggled very hard to get through school herself, went to work that very day and began to crochet Fannie Mae the dearest little blue hood, just like all the fortunate girls were wearing that winter. And then she ripped up a blue shirt and she had outgrown, cleaned and pressed it and made Fannie Mae a little blue cape to match the hood, and bought and sewed 3 shiny gold buttons down the front. The Sunday school teacher, who was a very busy woman with a big family of her own, took time and went to see Fannie Mae's mother to learn just exactly what Santa Claus might be expected to do for Fannie Mae at Christmas time. They had a nice visit. Then the teacher saw the superintendent and gave him the size of the little girl's shoes. And he said the Sunday school Santa Claus would be happy to put a nice pair of new shoes on the Christmas tree for Fannie Mae. Together with the regular treat, and the teacher thanked him and bought a pair of stockings to go with the shoes, and they hung them on the Christmas tree with 2 pink, red, yellow, white, and blue bags of candy and nuts. Christmas Eve night, the day teacher, who had the hood and cape all done and tied it up nice, smelly paper and a blue ribbon, came by for Fannie Mae to go to the Christmas tree. It was the first time she knew she was going to get to go. Oh, she fairly screamed. Going to the Christmas tree? Going to the Christmas tree? Got a new blue hood? Got a new blue cape? She danced up and down with joy. Her mother and day teacher were happy too. By and by, here came Prudy Ann and Maybelle to see if Fannie Mae could go. And oh, she could. And her silky braids looked so pretty under the new hood, and the cape was just right. And oh, wasn't it just beautiful? World after all. A beautiful Christmas world. At the church, a wonderful Christmas tree sparkled with candles and gifts, and the superintendent told of the babe of Bethlehem in those who honor the gifts were made. There was a concert, 2 dialogues, songs, and speeches about Christmas. The day teacher held the children spellbound with The Night Before Christmas. And at the close, the gifts were distributed. Fannie Mae got a pair of shoes, stockings, a pink bag of candy, and a little china doll, jointly contributed by her 2 little friends. How happy she was when she took her things home. But she was rushed up to the door and found that Mama was not well enough to be disturbed, and that she was to sleep next door at Granny Hope's, and Father added, Granny, that she should better hang up her stocking, for she had heard that Santa Claus might come by after all. Fannie Mae didn't really mind staying with Granny, but she would rather have stayed home over this particular night to talk over all that had taken place. Over at Granny Hope's, she snuggled up the warm Irish chain quilt and peeped out every little while to see if she could see any sign of Santa Claus. But alas, the Sandman got her, and it was a bright day when she heard Granny stirring and jumping out of bed, cried quickly, Christmas gift! Granny, Christmas gift! Oh, you caught me, did you, little booger? Said Granny, and gave her a big red apple. And then Fannie Mae rushed to the fireplace, for there was a stocking she had hung up the night before, fat and mysterious looking. In it she found molasses cookies, candy, and a gingerbread man. Fannie Mae rushed into her clothes and hurried over the house. But what was standing in the middle of the kitchen floor? A cradle bed, the prettiest you ever saw, big enough for Ella Virginia, or a live baby. And it had a mattress and pillows and the daintiest comforter imaginable. Oh, Papa, oh, Mama, she cried, rushing into the other room. But she stopped still, for her mother was taking medicine from a glass her father held, and Granny, who had come in another way, was holding something in her arms, something that looked like a doll, something tiny and brown and wrinkled, but oh, so very dear. Something that you loved the very minute you laid eyes on it and wanted to hold it in your arms. Oh, Mama, it isn't a live baby, is it? Cried the happy child as Granny laid it in her arms for a wee moment. Yes, it is your Christmas gift, your own dear little baby brother. Will you let him lie in your cradle bed when he's sleepy? Oh, Mama, oh, Daddy, cried Fannie Mae. I thought I wasn't going to have a Christmas at all. And it's the best Christmas in the whole world, isn't it? Didn't God give us a good Christmas this time?